Right. Good afternoon, everybody. I'd like to welcome you to the October meeting of the Boston Art Commission. My name is Karen Goodfellow, and I'm the Director of Public Art in the Mayor's Office of Arts and Culture. And in that capacity, I'm also the Director of the Boston Art Commission. It sounds like everyone's done this, but let's take a moment to update our names and pronouns and also make sure we are muted. In accordance with the Commonwealth of Massachusetts Executive Order suspending certain provisions of the open meeting law, we are conducting this meeting virtually. To ensure public access to the deliberations of the Boston Art Commission, the public can join this meeting through telephone and video conferencing. For those of you with us today, this meeting is being recorded and closed captioning is available. You can access it at the bottom of the screen. If you have trouble locating the button, please chat us for assistance. The Mayor's Office of Arts and Culture and the Boston Art Commission believe that public art is any artwork installed in publicly accessible spaces where they can be experienced by everyone for free. We engage in discussions about public art in Boston in order to foster the creation and collection of artworks that reflect the people, ideas, histories, and futures of Boston, which is on the traditional homeland of the Massachusetts people. We acknowledge the continuing presence of the Massachusetts as well as the Wampanoag and Nipmuc peoples. We also recognize the Indigenous peoples represented in the city's residents in addition to those in the diaspora. For transparency and community input, artworks proposed for City of Boston property are reviewed and discussed at public meetings of the Boston Art Commission on a regular, usually monthly basis. Working together with the public art team in the Mayor's Office of Arts and Culture, the Boston Art Commission is an independent board composed of 2 ex officio and 7 volunteer community members appointed by the mayor. The BAC has exclusive authority to approve and commission artworks intended to be added to the city's collection or to be placed on city property. Our meetings are generally held on the 2nd Tuesday of every month, and we hope you'll continue to join us. We have a dedicated public art team in the Mayor's Office of Arts and Culture that manages all daily operations and duties related to public art projects cited on or proposed for City of Boston property. This team facilitates these Boston Art Commission monthly public meetings and manages all phases of Boston's public art projects in collaboration with the Boston Art Commission, community members, and colleagues at the City of Boston. Helping to facilitate this meeting are Sarah Rodrigo, Senior Public Art Project Manager, Amber Torres, Public Art Project Manager, and Liza Quinones, Mural Consultant. And we'll add our contact information to the chat in case you need to reach out to us. And I'll pass to Mark Pasnick, Chair of the BAC.
Okay, thanks, Karen. Welcome, everyone. I'm calling this public hearing to order at 4:41 p.m. Today, the commission will hold its monthly public meeting. I'll now take roll call of the commissioners to confirm a quorum. After I state your name, commissioners, please say here. I'll begin with Aqua Holmes.
Here.
John Andres.
Here.
Michael Canizzo.
Here.
Cara Elliott Ortega.
Here.
Robert Freeman.
Here.
Brian Hone.
Here.
And that completes who's here. So we have a quorum. The next item on the agenda is the agenda itself. You'll see the full agenda that's publicly posted on the city's website, boston.gov. Our first order of business is to review the minutes from the September 13th meeting of the Boston Art Commission. Are there any comments or modifications any commissioner would like to add? And I will note that I made a few typographic changes earlier today on review with the staff. Any other comments? Hearing none. Gesundheit. Hearing none, I will ask for a motion to accept the minutes.
I move that we accept the minutes.
Okay, thank you, Bob. Do I hear a second?
I'll second that.
Oh, go ahead, Aqua.
Okay, Aqua seconded that. I'll read off the roll call. Please say yes if you agree with the motion. Aqua?
Yes.
John?
Yes.
Michael?
Yes.
Cara?
Yes.
Bob?
Yes.
Brian?
Yes.
And I'm a yes as well, so the motion passes. Now I'll turn it over to Karen for the director's report.
Thank you, Mark. We have 4 presentations on our agenda for review today. Artist selection for the basketball court murals at Malcolm X Park in Roxbury. Preliminary design for Fire Station 42, artwork by Lamarchi Fraser, titled Call and Response, Radiating Safety. Final acceptance of Chinese Chess Plaza by Mei Sun as part of the transfer of ownership to the city of Boston of the Chinatown Gate area. And review of the Memorandum of Understanding for the Embrace, as well as the review of the Memorial Moratorium for the Boston Common. The Memorandum of Understanding, or MOU, as we may call it, is a document that lays out future ownership and care and other details of the artwork. The moratorium is would allow artworks to be installed. Further along in the director's report, I'll brief you on where we are on that. And I'll jump into updates about long-term public art commissions. Matea Fitz started her mural, The Joy of Growing, at the Peabody Apartment in Dorchester last week. We're very grateful to the work she's been doing there. And I do want to note that coordinating that took a lot of effort by our public art mural consultant, Liza, who's here with us. And I also want to express thanks for her patience and due diligence on that. Simon Donovan and Ben Olmsted will be installing the Creative in early November in front of the newly opened Boston Arts Academy in Fenway. And on the right, you can see a couple photographs of the sculpture in Fabrication. Jeremy Sobek Harrison completed installation of Turmoil at the Roxbury branch of the Boston Public Library yesterday. So we'll have a number of final acceptance presentations in November. A photograph of the artwork is on the bottom right of your screen. The Eyes of the Future by Yuki Lee are in production, and we'll see sample images of both on the next slide. And that's for City Hall Plaza. And lastly, I told you I would further brief you on the MOU and moratorium lifting. These are both sort of more abstract than the content we usually review in the meetings, but just wanted to offer a little bit of background of how we got here and where we are now. In 2017, in partnership with what was then becoming MLK Boston and is now King Boston, the Boston Art Commission and the City of Boston began the process of creating an installation commemorating Dr. Martin Luther King Jr.'s and Coretta Scott King's legacy in our city, our nation, and the world. Since that time, dozens, if not hundreds, of community conversations have been held and public exhibitions hosted, leading to the selection of a site, the Boston Common, and an artist team, Hank Willis Thomas with Mass Design Group, for the artwork. These public community conversations also led to the expansion of the project from a sculptural memorial in the traditional sense to an expansive living memorial and legacy project now championed in the work of King Boston to advance racial and economic justice in Boston today. We have appreciated having this partnership and are excited to finalize some of the important work we have to see through before installation begins. One of the more important but less exciting aspects of our work is the coordination behind the creation and installation and planning for the future care of the artworks we take care of with the Boston Art Commission and in the Mayor's Office of Arts and Culture. One tool we use to guide our work with artists and community groups is written agreements, and in this case, an MOU, which clearly define each party's roles and responsibilities and follow best practices for public art commissioning. And ideally, this document is created early and includes all important players. You approve final design of the Embrace pending that the MOU and its exhibits as drafted, including the deed of gift, were accepted, and that if there were any substantial changes that King Boston would return to the BAC for further review. This was the last formal vote you took on the Embrace on March 9th, 2021. Since that time, shortly after that, TBF finalized and shared some private agreements with the artists that did not align with the version of the documents that you approved. We are continuing to work with TBF and King Boston to bring our agreements into alignment and make possible efforts. We are making possible efforts to do so with concern for everyone's timelines. And we know that you'll appreciate that as well. This next vote on the Embrace will be to ask you to finalize the MOU with updates that I hope will bring into alignment the version that you already approved and some of the work that TBF has done since. And then to also lift the moratorium on public art on the common so that installation can go forward.
So can we ask some questions here on this one?
Sure.
Just because currently we have them on the agenda today to vote on the lift of the moratorium, but we don't have the first step in that, which is the MOU being completed. So I'm not sure where we stand with that.
We are working very actively with them to resolve those differences. And, just to give you a sense, some of them are things that you had asked us to look into, like the structure of a fund for maintenance, some of the questions around IP, which came up in particular when we were able to read some of the related agreements that they have, which really don't align with standard process for public art in our experience. So we want to make sure that we understand what it means for a public artwork that the city will take on. But we are very active in working with them to move those forward.
So it sounds like we might need a little more time to work on the MOU to get it sort of in alignment for everyone's understanding. And I'm wondering if we could propose a special meeting, perhaps a week from now, to give ourselves some time to work on it. Does anyone have any thoughts or questions about that?
What seems a good solution, if their timeline is urgent for lifting the moratorium, that we could give them a little more time to finish the MOU with us and then still be able to vote to lift it at a future meeting. I don't see how we could vote on it today because we don't have the MOU, and it's not like there hasn't been time to complete the MOU. We voted on that, you said March 2021, so it's a year and a half. I think that, hopefully we could give them just enough time to wrap up whatever lingering elements are in negotiation with our legal team, and then be able to vote on the lifting of the moratorium after that's completed. So Aqua, that sounds like a good solution if it works with their timeline.
Is there a representative here that could speak to that?
I saw Amari on here. I don't know. Amari, are you in a place to be able to speak for King Boston TBS?
Hi, this is Imari. Can you hear me okay?
Hey, Amari. We can hear
Hey,
you.
good afternoon, everyone. Great to see everyone. I think what makes this difficult is that the new ship memorial from Washington without compromising statute around putting public art on the memorial. We need to start the pre-shipping process. So according to the schedule, that process should start now for ship date in early November. And so I think what makes it challenging is that the requisite time to negotiate parts of the MOU might take longer than the 14 days between when it needs to leave Walla and when we need to give them the okay to approve. And so I think having the MOU coupled with moratorium creates challenges where we might not be able to maintain our schedule to have this completed to celebrate on MLK weekend.
I mean, we obviously don't want to slow things down, but it has been a year and a half since we had that vote. So how much longer do you need on the MOU, and how do we, that's our expectation. The MOU is done before we vote to bring the artwork into the site. So is that possible to get your legal team on board?
Well, I don't want to talk about the timeline on the MOU because you're right, it has been over 18 months. And we have a documented schedule when we have corresponded to get this resolved. And so I don't want to talk about that in a public meeting. So it's very difficult for us to respond to something within a week after receiving red line. So I think we have to decouple them so that legal counsel has appropriate time to look at the new red lines that we just received last week.
I'm just wondering if we can, I think the commission is ready to make this a priority because of course, you know, we're all waiting for this phenomenal piece of work to be installed in our city. And I'm just wondering if King Boston can do the same, if we can prioritize it and be intentional about coming to a place of understanding and agreement. Can we make this a priority for the next week or so? That's a question to you, Imari.
I think you might be.
Sorry, Equa.
Sorry.
It's not a problem for us to prioritize. It's just that we've only had the new red lines for a week, including the discovery of the moratorium being a condition of the MOU, which in the last version that we submitted to the BAC, which was in June. And so we haven't heard back from the BAC since June. And now we have a week to respond to something in order to lift the moratorium. It seems like a challenge for us. And what I want to do is hopefully not sacrifice negotiating something that neither party can agree with because of a short timeline. And so I'm wondering if we can decouple the moratorium being lifted so that both legal counsels have appropriate time to negotiate the specifics of the MOU.
I think that that's hard for us to do, to decouple the two. This is part of the process that we've had for 18 months. So I know that there's complications with it, but you know, we're willing to definitely have a special meeting in a week or a week and a half or 2 weeks or whatever timeline works to thread this needle. I realize it's probably a needle to be thread, but I'm not sure that we can lift the moratorium without having an MOU or at least clarity around the timeframe of the MOU.
I think it's hard for us to respond in a week that now that we're here. The last correspondence we had with the BAC was in June of this year. And so from our June correspondence until now, the BAC has not responded to our inquiry. And so then to get this and have to respond in a week seems a little unfair for us to have to negotiate something of this magnitude within a week, given that the BAC has not responded since June.
I'm not sure about the timelines of the response of the BAC, but Imari, what do you think would be a reasonable timeline for King Boston to address the red line issues? Maybe.
Well, we've submitted our response to the red line, so the BAC now has our responses to the red lines. And so the BAC's attorney has to now look at the red lines and respond back to us. So we responded to the red lines within 5 days after receiving new conditions of the MOU.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm not sure it's us not responding in a timely manner.
But it does sound like it might still be possible if the ball's in our court. It sounds like you're saying the ball's in the court of the BAC right now.
Well, I'm nervous given that the last time we submitted our inquiry to red lines that we submitted in March, we're just now hearing back in October that we can resolve this. So we submitted our red line responses in March, inquired in June, heard back in October, and now we're expected to respond back in a week, which we did. And to have this resolved in 3 weeks, I'm nervous about that timeline.
Hey, Mari, it's Karen. I think we might have some disagreements about the timeline there.
I can certainly submit the
communication.
timelines in our correspondence.
Sure, I think we can go over that. I do want to note that the red lines we received before our March meeting arrived at 1 in the morning, the day of our meeting. So we weren't able to look at those before we took that final design vote. So the version that we voted on, that this board voted on, did not have any of that information. And so it's a little bit more complex in terms of when, you know, the version that this body voted on, the deed of gift very clearly outlines the process of the donation. And, there were some negotiations happening on the side that we were not included in that have been a lot more complex for us to try to navigate, including, things when we've talked about them in public meetings, including issues of trademark and commercial rights on the artwork that we do not normally negotiate with or
Right, and so-
expect public
so that
artworks
was
to
it.
have.
So right in March, it's now October. And
We-
so you
no,
had from March
Amari,
until
no, we didn't. We didn't
October to
receive,
respond back.
Amari, those are the
And
agreement
then
with
we
the artist, the
corresponded with
phase
you in
2
June.
agreement. Amari, the phase 2 agreement wasn't even signed with the artist till August, which is months after we voted on the final design and that version of the MOU. And I think regardless, I think the main point here is that there are some disagreements about timeline, but that time is of the essence here, and we do all want to prioritize this. I think that we can go, we can clarify and work on a joint timeline so that we can understand each other, because I do think we share goals here. But I think, it has always been our understanding that the MOU would be completed before installation. I think we see the moratorium as a procedural vote that will happen along with that. But I think having the MOU will be really important so that we do understand how we're going to care for it, how we access funds, who's holding funds, who's doing what care for the artwork, and who owns what aspects of the artwork. And so all those things, I am sure that if we put effort into it, our legal teams can negotiate in a week or two, if we focus on it.
Karen, can you tell me how much, so our legal team has the red lines from?
We do. We got a lot of content that we put in there was removed. And so I think we need a conversation about what is appropriate. We have some outstanding questions. One example of a question that we have is, what happens to the warranty on the artwork, right? So the artist gave TBF a warranty for care for the artwork. What happens to that going forward? So some of them are there, again, they're not very interesting,
Those
but
are the
they're
type of
important.
questions that could have been resolved before October that were not in the MOU. And so you're now bringing them up in October, and you have the schedule, the build schedule, and under the conditions of the MOU, and you have the build schedule, but this is the first time you're asking these questions. And so it doesn't give me much confidence that this is going to be resolved in 3 weeks. But we will do our best in order to make this happen.
Okay.
I think that makes the most sense, is to, have the intention of getting this done in the next couple of weeks. I hope I'm speaking for the commission that we will make ourselves available when the time comes to make a final vote on the MOU and lifting the moratorium. I know I will make it a priority, and just appreciate everyone at King Boston's intention and diligence in getting this done. Unfortunately, I have to leave this meeting. So Mark, if you could just take over for me right now. I have a hard stop at 5.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right, thank you so much.
Okay, thanks, Aqua. All right, so we could readdress this in a week's time. We do need 2 days notice, correct? 48 hours of.
48 hours. I think we can.
Can our legal staff and their legal staff get together and say what's a realistic timeline to complete this?
We can connect with them and return to scheduling and make sure that we are making all efforts. And I will share, we have a draft timeline of some of the documents. Honestly, these are really confusing. We did, approve a draft MOU back in 2021. We did not see the related documents until many months later. And frankly, they are very confusing. So it is taking us some time to try to make some sense of it, but we'll do our best to pull all that together and, present to you as soon as possible, because we do want to move this project forward on the timeline that King Boston is hoping for.
Okay. And other commissioners, I know, Robert, you may have some issues with travel, but are other commissioners available for a special meeting that we would host around this vote? Let me just read off the list and say yes if you think you can. John,
Yes.
Michael,
I guess yes.
okay. Cara,
Yes.
Bob, you may be traveling, but before the 19th?
Yes, if it's before the 19th.
Okay, and then Brian?
Yes.
Okay, so that would be enough people to be a quorum, so we could make the meeting work. Could be as soon as 2 days from now if everything could be pulled together properly. Okay, and can we double down on our legal staff to make sure that they're being responsive as needed?
Yes, we will make sure to do that.
Okay, thank you. All right, Karen, I think we're still in your director's report. Sorry to ask those questions in the midst of it.
Oh, no, it's okay. Let's see. Sorry, give me 1 second. Other projects in fabrication, the fabrication installation contract for bookmarked by Stu Schechter for the Mattapan branch of the BPL was executed this morning, which is very exciting for anyone who's been tracking this project over the years. And you can see design images from the 2020 final design review on the right. And we are excited that the project is moving forward in partnership with the Mattapan Library Art Committee. And that is all due to their advocacy and passion for this project. And the Future of the Past is Here Now by Curtis Williams for the Fano branch of the Boston Public Library in Brighton is also in fabrication, and we'll share an image of the test prints on the next slide, along with the test print for Yuki Lee's artworks for City Hall Plaza. And on the right are the photographs of the test prints. Yuki Lee's work will be printed on canvas, and it's a short-term installation on City Hall Plaza, which is set to open later this fall in November, I believe. And Curtis Williams' artwork will be a long-term vinyl mural installed directly on the interior wall in the children's room. Priscilla de Carvalho and project manager Amber Torres will meet with Kate Brown, the head librarian of the Adams Street Library, on Saturday, October 29th, for a tour of the library in order to finalize the site and begin planning for her artist talk in January. And the public art team is working with the city council liaison and Councilor Lara's office, as well as Funduarco and Commissioner Camilo Alvarez to figure out next steps for the Dominican Heritage Memorial at Mozart Park. And then in existing collection this month, Daedalus cleaned and repaired the Soldiers and Sailors monument on the Boston Common. And on September 18th, after a festival on the Common, there were a large number of incidents of vandalism on public artworks. And you can see in images on the right of some of that vandalism. And the Friends of the Public Garden had all the artwork cleaned and have been communicative with us, which we greatly appreciate. And that is the end of the report this month.
Okay, thank you, Karen. We'll now move on to items for agenda for review, public testimony, and commission vote. Here's how you can participate in today's meeting. During the meeting, please keep yourself muted. If you have technical difficulties during the meeting, you can ask questions in the chat and a member of staff will help you. After presentations and questions from the commission, I will invite public testimony. If you would like to participate, you can press the raise your hand icon and staff will put you in a digital line for comment. You can also let staff know that you have questions in the chat. If you're calling in, press *9 to raise your hand. Please remember to keep your comments on topic and brief. The next slide, our goal is to make the meeting a good experience for all so that community members feel comfortable sharing their feedback and questions. Please be mindful of and respectful of other people's time when speaking so that other participants feel comfortable adding their comments. You can submit longer written testimony to bac@boston.gov. While you may disagree with other attendees' testimony, you may not interrupt them during their allotted time. Please keep questions and comments project specific. If you're called on, please state your name, title, program, and if relevant, organization. The next presentation for review is artist selections for the Malcolm X Park basketball court murals for Malcolm X Park in Roxbury. Liza will present some context about this project. Liza?
Thank you so much, Mark. Good afternoon, commissioners and everybody here today. Um, I am very excited to come to a place of presenting our finalists and our recommendations for your review. This call to artist opportunity was released as part of the Transformative Public Art Program on March 21st, 2022 for 3 long-term basketball court murals at Malcolm X Park in the Roxbury neighborhood. Malcolm X Park is currently undergoing renovations by the city's Department of Parks and Recreation. This project is the city's first equitable procurement project and has included many community meetings. At these community meetings, repeated requests were made to include public art in the project. Thus, in collaboration with the Parks Department and a Roxbury community working group, we were able to identify 4 locations for public art at this site. The first location is a vertical mural on the rear facade of the Shelburne Community Center, which, if you can recall, the BAC had commissioned Gio Ortega earlier this year for. As I mentioned, for your review today, we have 3 recommendations from both the working group and the Mayor's Office of Arts and Culture for the basketball court murals to present tonight. We received and reviewed a total of 44 submissions. 4 finalists were selected and interviewed, and I will present each to you now. So one of our finalists, the artist's name is Maxwell Mks. And Maxwell is a multidisciplinary artist from Chicago. His team is a little bit unclear, but through his artist statement, he says this: although I did not grow up playing at Malcolm X Park, I know firsthand what it means to have space that not only honors Brother Malcolm, but also provides a place of refuge and community bonding. As a Black man, I was filled with joy driving down Malcolm X Boulevard on my way to the park. I was even more elated once I saw the park, knowing how much it meant to me. I can only imagine how much more it means to the local community. Next slide, please. Our second finalist is an application submitted as a collaboration between artist team Nomad Studio and Otra Ciudad. This is a collaborative team that's that's made up of 3 architects and 1 designer, all coming from Boston, Santiago, Chile, and Mexico City. Their connection to Roxbury is that Nicholas, one of the team members, is a resident of Boston who used to live a few blocks from Malcolm X Park. You'll see from their examples here that they are quite experienced with pavement and court murals. A little bit more about their statement of interest and their approach. Nomad Studio and Otra Ciudad is a collaborative team composed by multidisciplinary creatives, architects, artists, designers, and community leaders with more than 10 years of experience in the transformation of public spaces at an international level, mainly focused on pavement art painting. Their way of approaching the project emerges from a close work with the communities and the urban context. It is from this creative dialogue of co-creation with the community that the symbolic elements, shapes, and colors for the development of the artistic project emerge. Next slide, please. Our next finalist is another collaborative team of female and non-binary artists based out of Detroit and Boston. The team consists of Gina Flowerbaum Latham, who's the applicant, Sydney James, who's a lead artist from Detroit as her co-applicant, Seiji De La Cruz, an artist from Boston, Sharina Travieso, who's also an artist from Boston, Backpack Jordan, who's an artist from Detroit, and Nad the Nomad Harvin, who's also an artist from Detroit. Their connection to Roxbury is that 3 of the artists from the team are emerging artists local to the Roxbury neighborhood. Uh, this team symbolizes the bridging of two cities greatly impacted by the rich legacy of Malcolm X. In terms of their approach, the team proposes to collaborate on work between Detroit and Roxbury-based femme artists for the Malcolm X Park, led by Sydney G. James, a fine arts painter and muralist, proudly raised in and by Detroit. Her work boldly rewrites the narrative of Black reality, joy, pain, and Phoenix-like resilience. She's also the co-founder of the biannual Blackout Walls Mural Festival, which debuted in Detroit in 2021. With the experience of managing and collaborating with other artists, it is her intention to lead a team of 5 Black and Latinx femme artists in the execution of the synergetic vision for the Malcolm X Park basketball courts. Next slide, please. And our final finalist is artist Rob Pro-Black Gibbs. He's also the applicant. He will be leading a team of independent and talented artists of color that are from the communities of Roxbury, Mattapan, and Dorchester. These will also be artists and entrepreneurs that he has mentored over the years. Rob is an artist who was born and raised in Roxbury. And he feels a deep connection to the Malcolm X Park and the basketball courts. He says on those courts, we all spoke the same language: basketball, community, connection, and Roxbury pride. For his approach, he maintains that the court must be functional, that the artwork should not distract the players or take away from the game. He wants to incorporate some wayfinding, a wayfinding-like experience to guide both players and visitors to a deeper understanding of the surrounding neighborhood, while highlighting landmarks like the Africa is the Beginning mural, the Malcolm X Ella Little Collins house, and the old elevated orange line, and finally the former Roxbury Love mural. He'll further develop this concept in partnership with the artists working on the other 2 courts, so that the courts speak to each other and the collective aesthetic aligns with the legacy of the park. Next slide, please. So finally, after reviewing and interviewing the 4 finalists and discussing the finalists with our community working group, you'll see here that out of the 4, while all 4 artist teams were strong choices, the working group and the MOAC team recommends Rob Pro-Black Gibbs for one of the courts, Nomad Studio and Otra Ciudad team as another court, and the Boston and Detroit Femme Artist Collective led by Sydney James and Gina Latham for the 3rd court. These recommendations are based on a combination of their experience with painting large-scale murals, their demonstrated skill sets in composition, final execution, overall artistry, and their connections to the themes of the project and the Roxbury community. Happy to take any questions at this point.
Great, thank you. Let's open it up to any comments or questions from commissioners. But first off, thanks for all that. It's a great array of work, and it must have been a tough conversation to choose from.
Definitely.
Liza, I was curious, was there, since you're selecting 3 different artists to do 3 different pieces, was there any discussion about having the 3 pieces coordinate with each other? Is that a concern that there could be 3 different ones, or was there preference to sort of have them work together? I'm just curious.
Right, absolutely. The expectation once we get through this process of choosing and approving our finalists would be to have all of the teams meet so that there can be some conversations around thematic continuity across all 3 courts.
Thanks.
You're welcome.
And Liza, in that discussion,
once the teams are selected and are able to meet, just in terms of which court is assigned to which artist would be made at that time, sort of in collaboration with all of them?
I think our team at the Mayor's Office of Arts and Culture would probably choose the sort of curate the placement,
Okay,
so to speak, and then assign that and include that as part of the conversation when they do meet.
okay, great, thanks.
I saw Bob's hand up, maybe?
Yeah, is it my understanding that the artwork will be on the court itself or on vertical backdrops off court, off the court?
So the artwork will be both on the court as well as 3-foot retaining walls that separate each of the courts.
Right. So the artwork will be on the retaining walls also.
Correct.
Right. And I was just wondering, because Pro Black was the only one that really mentioned it, the idea of trying not to make the artwork a distraction for those who are going to be playing on the court. That seems to be really difficult to me, but I know if Pro Black is working on it, he's gonna make it happen.
Right. I think, once we get past this phase and get started with being able to brief the artists and gathering them to have those types of conversations, those are definitely some of the things, the skill sets, the inputs that we're going to provide in the very beginning so that they can step into their design phase with those things in mind.
Thank you.
Mhm.
Okay,
And then, just sorry,
go ahead.
it looks like there are 4 courts on the plan.
Mhm.
Is the 4th just kind of not in consideration at this point?
So that first court is already slated for to be designed by a group called Math Talks, and they're working directly with the park to activate that court with things that are math related, so that the younger players are able to incorporate math skill building with playing basketball.
Cool. Thank you.
Okay, if no other comments from commissioners, I'll see if there's any comments from the public. If you'd like to make a comment, please raise your hand now. I'm not seeing any hands raised. So with that, why don't we move to a motion? Would anybody like to make a motion to accept the recommendations of the committee for these artworks? Artist selection, I should say.
I can make a motion to move forward with the recommendations of the committee for the artist selection for this project.
Okay, I think we would want to say approve the artist selection recommended by
Sure.
them. Okay.
Sure.
Great. Thank you, Brian. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Bob. So I'll read off the names. Say yes if you agree with the motion. John,
Yes.
Michael,
Yes.
Cara,
Yes.
Bob,
Yes.
Brian,
Yes.
and I'm a yes as well. So the motion passes unanimously. Thanks so much, Liza, for all your hard work on this with the artists.
Thank you.
And we look forward to seeing its next phase. Okay, our second presentation for review is call and response for the Eggleston Square Fire Station. Sarah will give us some context for this project. Sarah?
Thank you, Chair. In 2018, the Office of Arts and Culture released a call to artists for public art for a new fire station in Eggleston Square. You can see a rendering of that station on the left. The station is now complete and operational. There's also a site map on the right for those of you who aren't familiar with the station. In 2019, this commission selected the artist Ralph Falmick for the commission. In May of 2020, Ralph presented a preliminary design. And though ultimately you did approve that design, it was with a number of reservations. Ralph took the commission's feedback very seriously and determined not to develop that design any further. In the months following, we supported him in exploring a number of different potential paths forward for the project. And it was through that exploration that Ralph met Lamerchi Frazier, eventually leading to the creation of a new structure for the project with Lamerchi as the lead artist. I'm honored to introduce Lamerchi tonight, and I should mention that you all actually approved that a few months ago as well. I'm honored to introduce Lamerchi tonight, who's going to present her preliminary design with the support of her project team. Lamerchi, welcome. Are you here and can you unmute?
Thank you so much, Sarah. And I'd just like to say we're very happy to be here, and we want to thank the commission for the opportunity to present Call and Response Radiating Safety as our proposed preliminary design and concept. Next slide, please. Our team consists of, I should say, contracted and mentor artist Ralph Falmick, project manager Kina Banda, CAD design and architect advisor Ben Bruce, and yours truly here, the principal artist Lamerchi Frazier. It is, next slide, please. It engenders my attention here to make some of you familiar with the work that I do and Ralph's work. And for those of you who might not know my work and his work. Here you see pictured an example of the works I produce in fiber as a series called Targeted Populations that feature iconic concentric circles related to targets, universal order, and radiating movement. This one is called Who's in My Neighborhood, and it was featured as a billboard in Nubian Square this summer. Next slide, please. In this particular image, you see that same kind of iconic concentric circles that are featured in my work with silhouetted people walking across that radiating background. And this is called We Just Keep On Coming. It was also selected as highlighted art for the Fenway on a billboard in a project about hope. Next slide, please. And now I will ask Ralph to explain his work and why we saw the connection in terms of circular work and concentric circles.
Thanks, Lamerchi. Can everybody hear me? Okay, great. I'm Ralph Falmick. I'm the contracted artist. Sarah's given a nice background about the history of the project. And I was eager to support a great artist like Lamerchi, particularly in terms of her technical and administrative realms, which are something with which I'm familiar. I am really thrilled to be working with her. I knew her work before this opportunity came up to support her work. I'm particularly intrigued and excited by, she does a lot of different kinds of things, but the quilts I find are just fascinating. And the motifs that she's just mentioned are, let's say, silhouettes, concentric circles, and I'll add transparency as a real quality to her work. So I think one thing that Lamerchi has discussed is how to take the magic in her quilts and actually gently explode it into 3 dimensions to be the wall piece for Engine 42. And so in terms of concentric circles, we're showing this just because it shows 2 things. There's a nice coincidence of concentric circles that I used in this commission I did about 15 years ago. But it also shows 3 different layers of water jet cut steel. And I think this is something where Lamerchi's silhouettes, which is a major motif in her work, could be translated into a medium that would hold up to the Boston environment. The concentric circles are obvious. That's just a great thing it has in final design. I'm sure, Lorchi, you'll elaborate on the resonance that, it goes historically. There's all sorts of beautiful echoes of that motif of hers. And then the transparency, next slide, please. Okay, these are details that show some of these are skyline. This was a piece I did for Dallas Police Station. It's in the floor, actually. There's a piece of glass on the floor that you walk over and you can stand right over this. Next slide, please. Transparency, how do you get, Lorchi does this super subtle and haunting layering of translucent fabrics. So how can we achieve something equivalent? And she and I have been discussing the use of perforated metal that would be layered. So this was actually an experimental piece I did a couple of years ago, and chose as my subject the stolen Vermeer from the Gardner Museum. There's kind of moire-like patterns that can happen with this that she and I will explore. Next slide, please. Back to you, Lorchi.
Okay, so our journey for Station 42 is indicative of this slide and the ribbon cutting by members and representative of the city of Boston, the firefighters, and the community in Eggleston. Next slide, please. And the actual building is here present from a photograph in 2021. And it shows the wall to the right, indicated by the arrow from the building photograph to the actual blueprint design of what we want to propose on that wall as a site-specific public work of 3D multi-dimensional and multimedia sculptural wall mural. And the reason for choosing the metal as opposed to painted wall mural will be apparent in our considerations of sustainability and maintenance. Next slide, please. Our design had much reflection and research in the area of the historical archives of the fire department and what Station 42, Engine 42, and the training of firefighters in that community would mean to help demonstrate this timeline of past, present, and future. Next slide, please. The mural components, as with that former slide image of the firefighters in training and the circular design, also took into account the demographics of Eggleston Square, its neighborhood, Boston's culture of firefighting, and the related safety of its residents. So next slide. We were guided by notions of equity within that community. And if a call went out, would there be a response? And we know the answer would be yes here. And so as you can see, the title call and response that I was acquainted with was the traditional West African practice of there being a lead call and there be a response to it. And analogous to the work of the firefighters and the rescuers, there is a call from individuals and collective people in the community for their assistance. And what we were concerned with is that radiation of what comes back as respect, and is translated as protection and safety, and this rhythm of trust. And I thought that was very important to have this reliance on being safe and having the firefighters know that they're respected in the community in this fire station. Next, please. Our themes were reflected in the evolution of the firefighting community, and that being the addition of women firefighters, that history that's been added, their training and facilities, and even thinking about how the firefighters train children. The stop, drop, and roll that we are all familiar with was another one of the considerations of how firefighters and rescuers and Engine 42 responds to its neighborhood call. Next, please. So conceptually, the designs, as Ralph has indicated, and as I've referred to, call you back to those concentric circles and the layering with silhouettes of what those concentric circles can present. So as we thought about the design, we wanted to reflect the community of people, the firefighters in action, including women, training, rescue, and the equipment that firefighters use, and reflect that in the sense of a firefighter's medallion, if you will. Next slide, please. So we embraced the layers that you see here to be presented in perforated steel in the circular design, one layer being the historic Eggleston neighborhood on your left, the community people walking, seeing this, this community, being in this community, the businesses that exist, then the firefighters and their equipment as another featured layer. Next slide, please. So our call and response here, as we pull it together, will be affected by the light in our daytime view seen on the left, with color and a view of the frontal look at the mural, and then the evening view pictured with a person to give you some scope and scale of what the mural size would be, that it would be raised enough that it would not be subject to vandalism, yet viewable in the sense that it's backlit by a feature that's already on the wall. And then these three layers separated by about 4 to 6 inches will give this view of different angles of the light as it hits it. You will see different points of it. So as people walk by, as people see it from passing cars, there is some interest in what does it say? How does it feature the layers? And we thought that this light as even an element of color is an important component to consider. Next, please. And I will turn the schedule over to Ralph, who can better tell you what we will be proposing as the schedule of the final design comes into fruition.
Thanks, Lamerchi. The final design, or what you've seen today, is truly a preliminary design. There have been meetings. We had a meeting with the fire department, and they were able to give us input about where the most appropriate icons or iconic imagery that would, achieve that sort of status that this is really a fire station. And then the neighborhood, that's going to be, there'll be further meetings on that. This is something, these kind of meetings are something Lamerchi has, done before and done very well. So there will be actually, after we will be doing actual mock-ups with perforated metal on site. It's really great that everything is local. We hope to do everything involved with this entire project within a 50-mile radius of Boston, everything that's concerned. So then there'll be site integration and lighting. The design that Lamerchi's come up with, I think, can be structurally it's viable. We'll double check that by having structural engineers ensure that. And then, as Lamerci said, there is a strip on the art wall, as it's called, of electricity is there. So we'll be working with a lighting designer to come up with lighting and color that honors the site. You know, will have the appropriate gravity of the building and be generous to the neighborhood. And I think let's see. Yeah, the remainder of those items are pretty self-explanatory. If there aren't, let me know.
Thank you, Ralph. So in reading this last slide, we wanted to honor the firefighting community and look for their attention in a place that they would like to come to work in every day, seeing that piece of artwork. But reflecting that it being the first fire station built in 30 years in Boston, I think was important to make a mark of some permanence in this artwork. That if this is the station that has now manifested itself in the last 30 years, we want it to be a lasting work. And for that reason, choosing metal instead of just painting something that would have to be refurbished and refreshed so often. And I do want to say that I am very grateful for having Ralph as a mentor. I have done public work before in a kinetic project with the city of Boston that was quite successful, but this is a next level for me as an artist. So I appreciate the opportunity to present our design and our concept, and now radiate what we have done in this serious manner to you for your questions. So thank you so much.
Hey, thank you, Lamerci, and thank you, Ralph, too. And thank you both for collaborating. It's exciting to us. I remember the whole process of how this came to be, and Sarah's summary of it was a helpful reminder, but it's great to see that it's being productive and offering you both something, a kind of new energy in your art. And I think that's wonderful to watch. So let's open it up to any comments or questions from commissioners. I can start us off with one. I noticed that it projects outward slightly, and code requires you to be careful about something that somebody could hit their head on. Is there a garden bed below it, or is it a pathway? It looks like in the renderings like there might be a garden bed below it, in which case my concern might be irrelevant.
I don't know if there's a garden bed below it, but I think it's a pretty good idea, Mark. So
well, I would just want to make sure that code is reviewed with it in terms of, Ben can do that for you, but just to make sure that it's not projecting far enough into the sphere where somebody could hit their head on it if they're walking below it. Maybe either far enough up or separated by something else that prevents that.
Mark, this is Sarah. I just wanted to mention that the architect is with us. I don't know if he would like to weigh in or if he's just listening. So Jason Harris, who worked on it.
Hi, everyone. First of all, I wanted to say that I'm really impressed with the work that you guys have done. I think this is a great direction. But in terms of the landscaping, some landscaping was installed after construction. However, there was some issues with some of the landscaping, and I think the plan is to readdress the grounds come next spring to determine really what's best for that area. So I don't think there's anything that is static, and I think it can be modified.
My only concern is the code issue of the clearance. Do you know if, I don't know how high off it is off the ground and those sorts of things, but it might be something that the team just needs to review.
Mm-hmm.
Certainly. Absolutely. Thank you for that.
Yep.
And other questions or comments from commissioners?
I just had a question about the perforations, and it looks like in one of the slides, some of the different layers in the actual metal might have been colored differently. Is that true, or do you have a sense? Just thinking about kind of reading the piece during the daylight and hoping that those three individual layers are kind of able to be read separately, I think is the intention during the day, because I really like the way that the piece kind of glows and comes to life at night, and just kind of want to hope that the piece is equally as satisfying during the day as in the night.
Yes. One of the considerations has been color, since Sarah brought out to us that my work has been full of color. So we were looking at the opportunity to treat the metal with color. As you see pictured in the daytime view, that opportunity to be able to have the different layers of different color is there. So yes, we are certainly looking at how that will be most impactful in the day and what colors we are going to use. The metal comes, as you know, a silver tone, like aluminum look to it as steel, but it can be treated with color, and we've done some experiments with that already. So the colors that you saw in the slide were not necessarily the colors we're going to use.
I would add,
Well,
Brian,
sounds fun. Yeah.
It's a great point. And one of the nice things that Lamerchi and I, both being local, I anticipate we're going to make a scale mock-up that is actually an actual section of the sculpture at 100%. And we can play with the size of the perforation. We can play with color. We can play the distance between the two layers on site, so that's very exciting.
Cool. Thank you.
Other comments? Remember, this is preliminary design review, right? So any comments you make now, the artists have a chance to address. So any other commissioners like to make a comment?
I wanted simply to say it was really nice to see this bold design that was so well thought out with the community in mind and the fire people in mind. I remember the first presentation years ago, and this is so strong as compared to the first presentation, and I really appreciate it. So thank you for all the work and thinking that went into this.
Yeah, thank you, Robert. That means a lot coming from you. Absolutely.
Okay, if there are no other comments, I'll open it up to the public. If any members of the public would like to make a comment, please raise your hand. I am not seeing any. So with no comments from the public, I wonder if we could entertain a motion for preliminary design approval.
I move that we accept the preliminary design for Engine 42 very enthusiastically.
Great. Okay. Thank you,
No, we
Bob.
don't have to add that last part on.
I'll second.
Kara seconded. Okay, great. So let me read off names, and if you're in agreement, please say yes. John?
Yes.
Michael?
Yes.
Kara?
Yes.
Bob?
Yes.
Brian?
Yes.
And I'm a yes as well. So congratulations, the motion passes, and this artwork has been given preliminary approval. Congratulations, Lamarche.
Thank you so
Ralph.
much.
And please say hi to Ben. He was my former student, so I guess he's working with your team.
Yes, it's wonderful.
So say hi for me.
I will.
Great. Okay, next up, we have the final acceptance of the Chinese Chess Plaza by Mei Sun. Sarah will give us some context for the project.
Thank you, Chair Pasnick. I'm actually going to present the project, although I believe that the artist is with us, so she may be willing to speak to us a bit at the end. So in September, let me move slides, apologies. In September of this year, the plaza in front of the Chinatown gates changed ownership from the Mass Department of Transportation to the City of Boston via the Public Improvement Commission. This had been a complicated piece of property due to the big dig in years past, and it is now under the city's ownership. So the area that we're looking at, if you can see my cursor, is in front of the Chinatown gate, but also extends over here to these, if you can see the difference in the pavement color, the artwork extends over to these ramp sections at the intersection of Surface Road and Beach Street. So this plaza includes this artwork by Mei Sun, which is titled Chinese Chess Plaza, and consists of individual tiles as well as a central map and chessboard. Mei Sun is a Los Angeles-based artist working in sculpture, multimedia installation, photography, drawing, and painting. Her work has been exhibited nationally and internationally, including MIT's List Center for the Visual Arts, Art Pace in San Antonio, Texas, and the Asia Society Galleries in New York. She's worked extensively in public art, completing numerous commissions throughout Southern California and across the US. You can see here these photographs that I took a few months ago from various perspectives around the plaza and across Surface Road and Beach Street, trying to give you a sense of the extent of this artwork and the locations. And May earlier today shared this project description with me. The design is inspired by a Chinese chessboard where a river divides the two sides. In Chinatown, everywhere, this game is played in public areas by both young and elderly people. It's affordable, available in a set with wooden pegs that have Chinese characters on them, denoting the general, soldier, etc. It's a commonly recognized iconography in the Chinese community. Outside of the board itself, there are random art pavers that have images on them that are ancient Chinese pictograms, the written Chinese language developed out of drawings. The images she included were pictograms for, in the top row, cloud, dawn, dog, eagle, and the bottom row from left to right, fish, house, boat, bright. Rain, river, star, sun, tiger, vehicle, to land, and moon. The tiles in this artwork are granite with sanded grout joints and Laticrete latex polymer filling the etched lines to create the imagery. Commissioners can find more information about the technical aspects of this artwork in their files, including MSDS sheets, just an entire binder that we've got from MassDOT about the reinstallation. And I'm wondering, May, if you'd be willing to say a few words about the process and the artwork, if you're able.
Sure. Hi, everyone.
Thank you.
So this was a 10-year project, and it started around October of 1997. And initially I was proposing, a large sculpture, but then because there were so many agencies involved, they asked me if I could be put on hold. And this lasted several months. And then they told me that because they waited for so long, I couldn't do anything structural. And they asked if I would consider designing, something for the pavement, like pavement design. And at first, I wasn't that interested, but then I came up with this idea of having a large Chinese chessboard, so that's how it initially, the project developed. And I happen to have a friend who has his own architecture firm very near the site. His name is Eric Gold, and he owns Helicon Design Group. So basically, I hired him to be on my team, and he was my liaison for the whole project. And he was hugely helpful, so being right there at the site. And I have traveled back several times I was really sad I couldn't come to the opening because I never was given enough time, to prepare for travel accommodations. So, but I hope to come back sometime very soon to look at it. So these initial art pavers were fabricated with colored concrete with stainless steel inlays for the actual pictograms. And I was promised that the maintenance would be done and that no salt would be poured to melt the snow. And I think that did happen. So the initial concrete, the colored concrete pavers, they started eroding on the sides and some of them looked really bad. So, we decided that it was best to replace them with something very durable like granite. And so these are all granite with pictograms and etched in and colored with this colored epoxy. So that's basically, I guess, the history of the project. And also in the first few years, I met with members of the Chinatown community, and I was told that in the initial meetings, everyone there said they would like to see more open space because Chinatown was so crowded. And so Kara Johnson designed that beautiful park. And then I was sort of involved in the beginning, working with them a little bit. And I also chose the lighting and the benches, the seating. I was asked to do that. So I was sort of involved in that whole process and meeting members of the Chinatown community. So I was very involved, with the people in the first few years.
Excellent. Thank you, May.
Thank you.
We really appreciate your
Thank you so
being
much,
here.
May and Sarah. We will open it up to comments and questions. These are always the fun moments in our career, especially one that's taken this long to come to be in the collection of the city, for us to approve its inclusion in our collection. So let me open it up to any comments from commissioners before we take a vote. Oh, I have one question. Will there be interpretive material? Will there be ways for us to understand, or the general public to understand the meaning of some?
I know I've thought about this for over the years, and I don't quite know how to go about it. I thought it would be good to have written material, like I could design a little book, but I'm not sure, which organization would be involved and where I would get funding and all that. Maybe the library.
Well,
Because-
May, it's something actually, and Chair, that I talked with John Romano at MassDOT, who we've been working with on the transferring the project over to us, and asked and was surprised that there isn't currently a plaque that I'm aware of or that he was aware of. So I think it is something that we will want to address as part of the collection now, to have some kind of signage.
I think there is a plaque somewhere, but I know it doesn't have all the information on it. So
It'd be nice if we could refer people to our website where maybe some of the interpretation could be located. Or at the very least, we would have it on our website.
Right. That would be good, I think.
Yeah. Okay.
Yes,
Great.
I actually have received an email a few years ago by just somebody from, a regular person from Boston asking me about the significance
Meaning?
of the art papers. Actually, I think I've received a couple of emails. So
Be great to record it and make it available somehow.
right. Okay.
Other comments? Seeing none, I wonder if I could request a motion to accept the artwork into our collection.
I will make a motion that we accept the art piece, Chinese Chess Plaza by artist May Sun into the permanent collection of the Art Commission.
Great, thank you. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Great, thank you, Brian. So Michael gave the motion, Brian seconded. Now I'll read off the names, and if you agree with the motion, please say yes. Michael?
Yes.
Cara?
Yes.
Bob?
Yes.
Brian?
Yes.
And I am a yes as well. We have a quorum, and the vote passes unanimously with the quorum we have. So congratulations, May. We are very ecstatic to have your artwork become a part of Boston's permanent collection of public art.
Oh, thank you so much. I'm thrilled.
Congratulations after a very long haul
Yes.
to get here.
Thank
Very
you.
excited. Okay, thank you. Okay, so next up we have, I think that we've tabled this until we have clarity around the MOU and that we have agreed to have a meeting as soon as possible of the Art Commission with 48 hours notice required for us to then vote on extending the status. I see a hand up. Camilla?
Hi, good evening, Commission. We do have a representative. Our attorney, Sammy Nabulsi, is in the waiting room, I believe.
Oh, I think I just let him in.
Hey, Camilla, I'm here.
Thanks, Sammy.
Hi, Sammy.
Hi, good evening.
So I don't know, Sammy, have you been apprised on what we discussed earlier?
I'm just joining the meeting now.
Okay. So we had an earlier discussion that given that the MOU is not complete, that we will await further negotiations before lifting the moratorium, and that we as a commission are committed to having an early meeting or a special meeting in conjunction with that action so that we could set up a meeting. You obviously know, because you were our legal advisor before, that we need 48 hours business day notice, but that we can, the commission, all commissioners agreed to double down and find the time to have that meeting before our next month off so that we can keep you on track with your timeline.
Yeah, I think, I guess the difficulty with that, right, is and sorry, quick caveat. My kids are here, so you'll hear noises in the background here and there, and I may get interrupted. Anyways, this is what I think is the issue with that. For us to be on timeline so that the embrace can be celebrated on MLK Day in 2023, the Boston Foundation needs to be able to let the artist know when shipping can be released. And that has to happen at the end of this month for there to be shipping preparation and delivery. I think the difficulty we've been experiencing is there was a time when the MOU, and I understand that there's been a little bit of, musical chairs with the attorneys on the BAC side, but prior counsel, Nyla Freeman, had represented to us back in November 2021 when we sent an MOU over that the MOU is largely agreed to, and the remaining issue was the Exhibit A deed of gift, which I understood why that was the holdup, because we were still negotiating with the artist. And then we didn't hear anything on the MOU for several months into this year. With the new council, there's now been a reopener of things in the MOU that, frankly, from the foundation's perspective, are non-starters for the very reason that just we legally cannot enter into certain agreements around the maintenance funding, largely where the fund is held, because there are donor restrictions associated with that. We've sent some revisions and concerns over to council for the BAC, but at this moment, it just feels like we're really far apart on the MOU that it's starting to threaten the schedule. we can't instruct the artist to ship a piece that, as it stands today, would be illegal to be installed in the Boston Common. So I've just become very concerned about this notion that the moratorium lifting be tied to the MOU, because based on the latest rounds of edits from the attorney for the commission, which are new issues now raised, last month, or maybe earlier, probably last month. I'm worried about shipping. I'm worried about timeline.
Well, so
And I don't know that we know the status of where the commission is on its evolution on those issues.
okay, so I think that there's some clarity that needs to happen between the attorneys, and that can't happen in this meeting, obviously. Our attorney is not here, but my suggestion, and actually our decision that we made earlier, is to postpone any vote on lifting the moratorium and to be responsive to timeline. It sounds like you have till the end of the month. That buys us at least 2 weeks, I would guess, if things can be worked out, or perhaps some other solution could be agreed to by both sides on this. I don't know if there could be a temporary lifting or some other stopgap measure. I think the commission would be willing to listen to those options. We can't vote on it tonight because there hasn't been that discussion, but I think we're prepared, and more than a quorum has agreed to set a special meeting in the coming week or two, depending on what works with the schedule to go over this. So my suggestion is that the two legal groups get together and work with our staff, and then we set up a meeting that either we lift the moratorium or find some other mode that allows you to stay on track.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, that may be okay. I think as long as, and tell me if I'm hearing you correctly, just to play it back, there's an openness and a willingness on the part of the commission to, untether the two if it becomes.
No, I didn't say that. I think for us, it's important that we have a memorandum of understanding that should have been guiding this project for a long time. And I'm not sure why it hasn't gotten there. We've been having regular reports given to us about the MOU, but it doesn't seem to have been finalized. So I'm not saying that we're untethering. I can't say that myself. That would have to be a commission decision. But I'd say that we're open to looking at if there's a stopgap of saying, we can temporarily allow you to put a sculpture on the site, something along those lines. I could imagine that the commission might entertain something like that allows you to stay on track, but also still, we need that MOU completed. Is that clear?
I think so. I mean, I think my concern is we seem really far apart on the MOU. And I just worry that at some point, I mean, perhaps we can resolve it in the next week and a half. We're waiting on a response, I suppose, at this moment. Sorry, that's the doorbell.
It's okay.
We're waiting on a response on the MOU at this moment. I think if we appear to be closer at that point, great. And perhaps we need to revisit in a week and a half or so. My only concern is just that if the MOU isn't in place at the end of this month and the moratorium isn't lifted, we do have at that point, we have an inevitable schedule problem.
Okay, so we're all aware.
I think that's what we want to avoid.
We all want to avoid that if we can. And I think if everybody puts in their best faith effort on solving the MOU, we should be able to get there, I hope.
Yeah, I think that's fine. And I'll wait to hear back from council on that.
Okay, and we'll ask staff to, and we already did ask staff to make sure that council is aware of the impending need for the schedule to move forward. Okay. All right, thank you, Sammy, for joining us. And it is very much we want to make this happen. So I think all parties have the same goal in mind. How we get there requires some collaboration.
Yeah, no, I mean, I understand that. And, and again, I think ultimately, and I just want to remind the commission, I mean, where is the holdup? It's not in the King Boston's commitment around funding. It's not in the commitment to process. It's solely around where the fund is held. we have legal constraints around that. And I think once there's a common understanding about those legal restraints, the MOU hopefully falls into place. And I think I can understand why the commission would be concerned, of course, in other contexts about how maintenance funding will work. But, I think everyone here understands that it is the essence of King Boston to maintain this piece in perpetuity. And, I hope there aren't concerns about King Boston's ability and willingness to do that. And I really hope that that is not going to hold up the scheduling. Thanks, everyone.
Okay, thank you, Sammy. All right, so let's move on to I think our last order of business is adjournment. So do I hear a motion to adjourn?
I move that we adjourn.
Thank you, Bob. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Okay, thank you, Brian. I'll read off the list. If you are in agreement with the adjournment, please say yes. Michael?
Yes.
Cara?
Yes.
Bob?
Yes.
Brian?
Yes.
And I'm a yes as well. So thank you, everyone. We're officially adjourned. And please keep an eye out for emails about a special meeting that we'll be having in the next week or two, so we can facilitate the movement forward on the King Boston Memorial. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you, Mark.
Thank you.